Lenu ada oga ebe akwa n'ihi na ịhụnanya ga-abụ ya.
Ada, you will marry the man I choose for you. And that was where the problem started. The village of Obinna was the kind where everybody knew everybody. In the morning, the air smelled of firewood and fresh corn. Women gossiped at the stream, children ran around half naked, and the men gathered under the big udala tree, arguing about who had the best yam harvest. In this village, one thing was clear. Panwosu's words were law in his household. And in that household was Adaobi, his only daughter. Adaobi was the kind of daughter every mother prayed for. Obedient, hardworking and beautiful. But what made her different was her father's deep attachment to her. To Panwosu, Adaobi was not just his daughter. She was his pride. And because of that, he had one rule. You will marry the man I choose for you. And that was where the problem started. One Harmattan morning, while Adaobi was frying akara outside, her father called her. Ada, sit down. She wiped her hands on her wrapper and obeyed. You are no longer a child. It is time for you to marry. Adaobi's heart skipped. She looked at her mother, who avoided her eyes. Chief Okafor's son Ikenna will be your husband. He is rich, educated, and from a respectable family. Adaobi felt her throat go dry. Ikenna, the same Ikenna who spoke only in proverbs and walked around as if the village belonged to him. She wanted to argue. She wanted to tell her father that she did not love Ikenna. But in Obinna, a father's decision was all. It was final. So she swallowed hard and nodded. Yes, Papa. That evening, Obinna returned from the city. Obinna, the palm wine tapper's son, the boy Adaobi grew up with. The one person who always made her laugh, even when she did not want to. He was different now. Taller, his voice deeper, his smile still the same. At the village square, he spotted Adaobi selling akara. He teased, Ada, so you have still not stopped burning akara? She rolled her eyes. Obinna, go away. He laughed. That laugh, the one that made her stomach flip, for the first time that day. She smiled, but she quickly reminded herself, it doesn't matter. I'm getting married to Ikenna after all. The New Yam Festival came. At the festival, everyone dressed in their best. The air was filled with music, roasted meat and laughter. Obinna found Adaobi sitting alone, playing with her beads. Why is my Ada looking like a widow at a wedding? I'm thinking, she smirked. About what? About how lucky you are to be marrying Chief Okafor's son? He teased. Obinna, leave me alone, Joe, leave me. But he did not. Instead, he pulled a piece of roasted yam from his plate and offered it to her. She hesitated, then she took it. And when their fingers touched, she felt something she had never felt with Ikenna. And that was the night she knew. The udala tree stood at the edge of the village, its wide branches casting long shadows in the evening sun. Adaobi leaned against its trunk, her arms folded, watching Obinna climb up with ease, his bare feet gripping the bark like he was born to do it. One day, I will fall down from here, and you will be the first to laugh. You are too stubborn to fall, Obinna. She chuckled. Obinna plucked an udala fruit, bit into it, and tossed another one down to her. When I marry you, I will build us a small house with an udala tree in the front, he said, wiping juice from his lips. Adaobi's heart sank. Who said I will marry you? Your eyes say so, Obinna grinned. Adaobi threw her udala seed at him, but her laughter betrayed her. They sat together in the quiet of the evening, their fingers brushing against each other. The world felt simple, light, until a rustle in the bushes reminded them that someone could be watching. Love was sweet, but forbidden love was dangerous. The village square was alive with chatter as young men gathered around Ikenna, their voices filled with admiration. Ikenna, you are too blessed. You will marry the most beautiful girl in the village, and you still have enough to take another one. One of his friends said, my brother, Adaobi is just the first. A man like me cannot eat only one meal for the rest of his life. The men laughed. Just then, Obinna passed by, carrying a keg of palm wine, fresh palm wine. Ikenna's eyes followed him, and he sneered. Look at him. He thinks because he can climb trees he's a man. The other men laughed. Maybe he can be my palm wine supplier when I marry my Adaobi. Ikenna added, loud enough for Obinna to hear. Obinna stopped, gripped his cake tighter, but said nothing. His silence only made Ikenna laugh harder. The words stung, but Obinna had learned long ago. Real men do not waste words on fools. And then the village gossip started. It started with Mama Ifeoma, the woman who sold groundnuts in front of the village square. Did you people hear? I saw Adaobi standing too close to that palm wine tapper last night. The news spread like wildfire. By evening, even Panwosu's closest friend had heard it. Ngosu, control your daughter before she brings disgrace upon your name, he warned. Panwosu's face darkened. When Adaobi walked into the hut that night, she found her father's eyes waiting for her. Sit down! The weight of his voice made her knees weak. Tell me, what is this I hear about you and that boy? Adaobi swallowed hard, her heart raised. She had two choices, lie or face her father's anger. But before she could speak, Panwosu's voice thundered through the room. You will never see that boy again. Her mother sat silently looking at her laps. No help would come from her tonight. Tears burned in Adaobi's eyes, but she blinked them back. This was not over, and Adaobi's body obeyed her father, but her heart remained with Obinna. One evening, she sat with her mother, pounding yam for the evening meal. Mama, do you think love should be a choice or a duty? A woman's life is not about love, my daughter. It's about survival, her mother said. But Mama, if I marry Ikenna, my heart will die. Her mother looked at her then, really looked at her. Something flickered in her eyes, something Adaobi couldn't read. But before she could say more, Panwosu's voice rang out from inside. Adaobi, are you done with the food? Her mother quickly turned back to the mortar, and just like that, the moment was gone. But Adaobi had made up her mind. She would not give up. The next week, Ikenna's family officially brought wine for Adaobi's hand in marriage. Obinna heard about it. That evening, he stood on the narrow path as Adaobi fetched water. So that's it. You will marry a man you do not love? Adaobi looked away. Love does not matter. He stepped closer. Says who? Says my father. Then in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, Ada, if you were mine, you would never go to bed sad. Her heart raised, but she picked her bucket and walked away. That night, she could not sleep. The bride price was paid. The wedding date was set. The whole village celebrated. Adaobi was not happy, and her mother noticed. My daughter, what is wrong? Adaobi finally broke down. She did not want to marry Ikenna. Then tell your father. But that was impossible. The night before the wedding, Obinna came to see her. Run away with me. Are you mad? I will take care of you. We will find a new life. She hesitated for a moment, and then she considered it. But she shook her head. I can't disgrace my father. That was the moment Obinna knew he had lost her. Then let me do it the right way. Obinna sat alone at the river bank, a half-empty gourd of palm wine beside him. His world felt small. The woman he loved was sleeping away. An old man sat beside him. It was Padike, the oldest palm wine tapper in the village. Why do you drink like a man who has lost everything? The old man asked. But I have lost everything. A man who truly wants something does not cry. He works for it, Padike said. Obinna looked up. You say you love Adaobi? Then make sure no man, no father, no rich suitor can stand between you and her. Something clicked inside Obinna, a faint glimmer of hope. That night, he poured out the rest of his wine. Tomorrow he would work harder, think smarter. He would fight for her. During the village festival, everyone was in full swing. Drums echoed in the air. Dancers moved to the rhythm, and men boasted about their wealth. Ikenna, dressed in the finest wrapper, walked through the crowd, greeting elders. His confidence was sky high. By this time next week, Adaobi will be my wife. Then a hush fell over the crowd. Obinna had arrived. He walked with a quiet confidence, not as a poor tapper, but as a man who had built himself up. His clothes were simple, but the respect in the eyes of the villagers was clear. Adaobi saw him and her heart pounded. She was really in love with him. For the first time, Ikenna felt something deep in his chest. Fear. 2 nights before the wedding, a drunken Ikenna was caught boasting to his friends. Once I marry that girl, her father's land is mine, and as for her, she will learn her place soon enough. Unfortunately for him, Pangmosu overheard. The old man's hands shook with anger. He started reconsidering the decision of giving his daughter to Ikenna. The next morning, Adaobi's mother stood before Pangmosu for the first time in years. The wedding was fast approaching. You have made your choices all your life. Today, allow Adaobi to make hers. Pangmosu stared at his wife. Then he slowly sighed. Tell that palm wine tapper to come. Then the wedding came. During the ceremony, just as Adaobi was about to be handed over to Ikenna, Obinna stepped forward in front of the whole village. He knelt before Pangmosu. I am not rich, but I love your daughter. I will work hard. I will prove myself. Just do not give her to a man who will kill her joy. The village was in shock. Ikenna laughed mockingly. My brother, love does not feed a family, eh? Pangmosu looked at Adaobi, and for the first time he saw sadness in her eyes. After what felt like forever, he exhaled. I will not give you riches, Obinna. But if you can prove yourself in 1 year, you may marry my daughter. The wedding was called off. The village erupted. Some cheered, some murmured. But one thing was clear. Love was winning. The seasons changed. Obinna worked hard, built his palm wine business, and became a respected man. He no longer walked around with just a tapping knife. He had men working under him. His name was no longer just Obinna, the palm wine tapper's son. He had become Obinna, the man who defied all odds for love. Meanwhile, Adaobi waited, not as a helpless girl, but as a woman who had chosen her own happiness. She helped her mother at home, smiled more, and for the first time in her life, she felt free. Free from the weight of pleasing everyone but herself. Then one Harmattan evening, Obinna returned, not as a poor boy, but as a man ready to marry his love. The whole village gathered. Even Ikenna was there watching from a corner, pretending to be unbothered. Pangmosu stood tall. He looked at Obinna from head to toe. You have done well. Obinna stood beside her mother, her heart pounding. Pangosu cleared his throat. You have proven yourself, Obinna. Today you will take my daughter. Not because of wealth, but because you have earned her happiness. The crowd erupted in cheers. Obinna turned to Adaobi, his eyes filled with the same playful mischief she had always known. He reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, a roasted piece of yam. I hope you still like roasted yam, Ada, he said with a smile. Adaobi laughed, a real deep happy laugh. This time, when he offered her the yam, she took it without hesitation. And with that, love won.